Preaching can be a challenging task, but by incorporating storytelling into your message, you can engage your audience and help them connect with your message on a deeper level. Well, how do you do it? Let's get some tips. When choosing stories to share during the sermon, make sure they support the message you're trying to convey. I cannot overemphasize that point. The story you share should find relevance to the Bible text or the point you are making. And this relevance should not be marginal or peripheral. The story should clearly illustrate your point in a way that resonates with your audience. When planning to use an illustration, it is vital to approach this with sensitivity and respect for culture, race, and gender. Recognize the diverse backgrounds and experiences of your congregation. Take time to understand the cultural and historical contexts from which they come. Avoid using stereotypes and generalizations that may perpetuate bias and discrimination. Instead, I suggest that you strive to choose examples and stories that resonate with a wide range of individuals. Also, be mindful of the impact of your words and the different imageries that you use that may have an impact upon different racial or ethnic groups. Avoid misrepresenting cultures with preconceived ideas and misconceptions. Rather, seek to promote understanding. Be mindful of gender biases or stereotypes that may exist. Ensure that your illustrations uplift and empower individuals of all genders and respect their inherent worth and dignity. Do not get into trouble by not being mindful. Stories or illustrations should be easy to follow and understand. Use simple language and structure your story in a way that is easy to follow. Avoid unnecessary details and stick to the main point. It is vitally important that you recognize that not every detail in an illustration or a story is directly relevant to the main point that you are seeking to make. So while the details can add depth and color to the narrative or the story that you're sharing, those details should not overshadow the primary message. Therefore, be careful to emphasize the key elements that align with the purpose of the sermon and the point that you are seeking to make. Personal stories can be a powerful tool for connecting with your congregation. Now, I like to tell personal stories while I preach because to me it feels more authentic and I can engage with my listeners a little more. When I share my personal experiences with the congregation, I'm able to take them into a moment or an aspect of my life that joins them to me, albeit temporary, but it will join them to me in a powerful way. And sometimes because of the nature of the story, it can be humorous, and they can see that on my face when I express that situation, that experience. Or it can be very emotional, and they can also see that coming out visibly. In those moments, I cannot pretend or fake it, but I have to be real. And so I like to use personal experiences. I suggest you use personal stories in your sermons. Now, while it is important to tell personal stories in your sermon, do not limit yourself solely to your own experiences. By incorporating a variety of stories, illustrations, and examples from different sources, you can broaden the scope of your sermon and reach a wider range of individuals in your congregation. I suggest you draw from diverse literature and historical events or current events and even other people's stories to make the point that you're attempting to clarify or illustrate the point you're trying to make. And by utilizing a diverse range of storytelling techniques, you can captivate your audience and keep them interested. You can keep them piqued through the sermon. And it will also prevent you from being perceived as uninteresting and one-dimensional. So use different types of stories and not just your personal experiences. Now, storytelling is a skill, and like any other skill, it takes some practice. Storytelling goes beyond simply relaying information. It involves captivating your audience and evoking emotions and leaving a lasting impression. That's the purpose of the illustration. That's the purpose of telling the story. It requires a keen understanding of pacing or structure and delivery to effectively engage your listeners. Now, while some individuals may possess a natural inclination of storytelling, I know some individuals who are great at telling stories. Not everybody is like that. And therefore, storytelling is a craft that you may want to work on. It can be honed by studying different narrative techniques and observing individuals who are great storytellers. And while you do that, you will continue to refine your own skill. You will refine your style. You will refine the way you tell the story, and then it becomes authentically you, and people will recognize that you are doing a great job at it. Now, one thing I'd like to share with you, when you're telling your story, when you're preaching and you're telling a story, resist the temptation to read your story. Tell your story rather than read your story. If you're telling a story about yourself and you have to read it, then it takes away something from that story. Practice the story. Tell the story to yourself, work on your delivery, and make sure that it is engaging and captivating. You want your audience to be invested in that story, and you need to be in the story, be excited about the story, and that message that you're attempting to share will resonate with them. Now, there are many other techniques that you may find about telling stories, and I want for you to drop me a line and share some of those tips that you may have. If this video has been helpful to you, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to this channel so that for future videos that I will put out, you will be one of the first ones to receive it. May God continue to bless you as you proclaim Him through preaching.